Hello and welcome to the Wise Senior, your trusted place for guidance, wellness, and inner peace after 60. Today we're diving into a topic that many avoid but truly matters: sexual satisfaction after 65. You might be surprised to learn that intimacy doesn't fade with age. In fact, it can flourish in ways that are deeply emotional, healing, and meaningful. In this video, we'll explore the key factors that shape your satisfaction later in life, and how you can reclaim or even improve your intimate connection, no matter your age. Let's begin this empowering conversation together. Let's start with a truth that's rarely said out loud. Sexual well-being doesn't disappear with age. It evolves. Just because you've turned 65 or even 85 doesn't mean the desire for intimacy fades away. In fact, research consistently shows that older adults who report higher satisfaction with their sex life also experience stronger emotional well-being, closer relationships, and even improved physical health. A German longitudinal study, for instance, found that those over 65 who continued to value intimacy were more likely to feel satisfied with their overall life. These individuals didn't just rate their sex life more positively, they also reported higher levels of happiness, less loneliness, and a deeper sense of connection to their partners. Simply put, intimacy contributes to a richer, more fulfilling aging process. Why is this so important? Because intimacy, in all its forms, offers more than just pleasure. It builds connection. It provides comfort. It reminds us that we are still seen, still desired, still deeply human. And for many older adults, this emotional closeness is more important now than ever before. The reality is, aging brings change. Our bodies shift, energy fluctuates, and health becomes more complex. But sexual expression remains a meaningful part of life. And it's not just about intercourse. It's about touch, affection, emotional bonding, laughter and quiet moments, and yes, even vulnerability. These are the threads that weave love into our everyday lives, regardless of age. Dr. Raina Malik, a urologist and pelvic surgeon, emphasizes this point. Sexual well-being is a crucial marker of overall quality of life as we age. According to her insights, people over 65 who continue to engage in intimacy, whether that's through physical affection, emotional closeness, or sexual activity, tend to age more successfully. They're more likely to report a sense of purpose, reduced stress, and even fewer symptoms of depression. Unfortunately, society often sends the wrong message. We're led to believe that intimacy is something we're supposed to outgrow, that after a certain age it's no longer appropriate or even necessary. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The need for connection, affection, and closeness doesn't end, and neither should the conversation around it. Think of intimacy not as a luxury, but as a form of care, for yourself and for your partner. It can be as simple as holding hands while watching a movie, as meaningful as a late-night talk, or as powerful as making space for shared vulnerability. These small acts strengthen the bond between partners and remind both people that they are still worthy of love, closeness, and attention. So as we continue with this conversation, remember, your sexual well-being is not a thing of the past. It's part of your present and your future. The journey of intimacy doesn't stop at retirement. In many ways, it's just beginning again, with more wisdom, more tenderness, and more freedom than ever before. To better understand what truly influences sexual satisfaction in later life, researchers in Germany launched an in-depth study that followed thousands of adults over several years, conducted across three major waves: in 2002, 2008, and 2011. This study gathered data from people ranging in age from their 40s into their 80s, offering one of the most detailed looks into how our sense of intimacy and satisfaction evolves with age. The results were eye-opening. At a glance, the study confirmed what many might expect. Satisfaction with one's sex life does tend to decline as people age. But when researchers dug deeper, they found that the reasons behind this decline went far beyond just the physical. It wasn't simply about hormonal changes or reduced libido. It was also about how people felt, how connected they were, and how they viewed intimacy itself. One of the key findings was that cognitive decline had a measurable impact on satisfaction. As memory and mental sharpness fade even slightly, the ability to connect emotionally and communicate needs clearly can also diminish. This doesn't mean intimacy becomes impossible, but it does highlight how essential mental engagement is to staying emotionally and physically connected. Another factor that stood out was the shrinking of social networks. As people age, their circles of close friends and regular social contacts often grow smaller. Loved ones move away, friends pass on, and physical limitations can make socializing more difficult. This sense of isolation can directly affect a person's emotional well-being, and by extension, their desire and ability to maintain intimate relationships. Interestingly, the study also asked participants to rate how important sexuality and intimacy were in their lives. On average, people over 65 scored lower on this question than those in middle age. The difference may not seem dramatic on paper, about 1 point on a 5-point scale, but statistically, it was significant. It suggests that with age, many people start to believe that intimacy simply matters less. But is that belief a reflection of personal values, or a result of societal messaging that tells older people they're no longer supposed to care? The study didn't stop there. It explored depression rates, chronic illness, and self-rated health. Unsurprisingly, those who described their health as poor or who lived with multiple medical conditions were less likely to feel satisfied in their sex life. Yet even among those in good health, other factors, like loneliness and shifting personal priorities, played a powerful role. What this study makes clear is that sexual well-being in older adulthood is multidimensional. It's not just about what the body can or can't do. It's also about what the mind believes is possible, what the heart is still open to, and how connected a person feels to the people around them. It also reminds us that satisfaction doesn't automatically disappear with age. It's influenced by a combination of mindset, health, social connection, and cultural beliefs. And perhaps most importantly, it challenges the outdated idea that older adults aren't interested in or capable of deep, fulfilling intimacy. The truth is they are, and many still crave it, in ways that are emotional, physical, and deeply human. So, what really predicts lower satisfaction with sex and intimacy after 65? Let's start with the obvious: physical health. People who reported poor overall health or lived with multiple chronic illnesses were far more likely to feel dissatisfied in their intimate lives. This makes sense. Fatigue, pain, medication side effects, and reduced mobility can all directly affect desire and comfort during physical intimacy. For many older adults, it's not that they've lost interest, it's that their body isn't cooperating the way it used to. And when intimacy feels like effort or discomfort instead of connection, it naturally becomes less appealing. But beyond physical health, the study revealed 3 surprising and deeply human predictors of lower sexual satisfaction, and each one is worth exploring. First, loneliness. Loneliness is more than just being alone. It's the absence of meaningful emotional connection, and it's one of the most silent and underestimated barriers to sexual satisfaction in later life. When someone feels isolated, intimacy often fades into the background. It becomes difficult to desire closeness when you feel unseen, or when your days pass with little emotional engagement. For many older adults, especially those who live alone or have limited social contact, this loneliness can deepen over time. Maybe their partner has passed, or their children are grown and busy. Even in relationships, emotional disconnection can creep in quietly, and over time, that absence of closeness can make intimacy feel distant or even irrelevant. The irony is that intimacy is one of the very things that can ease loneliness, but without connection, it's difficult to find the doorway back in. Second, shifting beliefs about the importance of sexuality. As people age, some begin to believe that sex is no longer an essential part of life. Perhaps they've internalized societal messages, suggesting that intimacy is for the young, or maybe past experiences, discomfort, lack of communication, or relationship changes have led them to quietly lower their expectations. The study found that people who reported believing that sex and intimacy were less important were also the least likely to be satisfied with their sex life. This isn't about forcing yourself to value something you've truly outgrown. Rather, it's about reflecting honestly. Have you stopped caring? Or have you simply stopped believing that it's still possible for you? When intimacy is deprioritized, efforts to connect, emotionally or physically, often follow suit. And without that intention, even a loving relationship can begin to feel more like companionship than connection. But the good news is, beliefs can change. And when you believe that closeness still matters, you're more likely to create opportunities for it to flourish. And third, being female. This was one of the most significant predictors of lower satisfaction in the study. Women, especially those over 65, reported notably less satisfaction with their sexual health than their male counterparts. The reasons are both physiological and social. After menopause, the body undergoes many changes. Hormonal shifts can lead to vaginal dryness, decreased libido, and discomfort during sex. These changes can be frustrating, even painful, and can quickly chip away at a woman's desire for intimacy. Add to this the cultural silence that often surrounds female sexuality in older age. And it's no wonder many women start to feel disconnected from their sexual selves. But just because something changes doesn't mean it disappears. There are solutions. From medical options to emotional support that can restore comfort and rekindle connection. The first step is recognizing that these issues are real, valid, and absolutely worth addressing. In the end, these three factors, loneliness, undervaluing intimacy, and the specific challenges women face, don't just influence our relationships, they shape how we feel about ourselves, and that's why they matter. Because sexual well-being isn't about youth. It's about connection, confidence, and the belief that closeness still belongs in your life. Let's talk about something most of us have felt, but don't often speak about: loneliness. It's easy to think of loneliness as a passing emotion, like boredom or a quiet afternoon. But the truth is, it runs much deeper. Loneliness can quietly take root and affect your health, your mood, and even your ability to feel close to others. And yes, it can directly impact your satisfaction with your sex life. According to the German study we mentioned earlier, older adults who described themselves as feeling lonely were significantly more likely to feel dissatisfied with their sexual well-being. Why is that? Because intimacy begins with connection, and connection starts well before the bedroom. When we feel emotionally isolated, it becomes harder to be open, to feel desired, and to desire in return. That sense of emotional closeness is what fuels the spark of intimacy. Without it, that spark often fades. Let's look at George, a widower in his early 70s. After his wife passed, George withdrew, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't want to burden anyone. Weeks turned into months, and eventually, he stopped reaching out altogether. "I just felt invisible," he admitted. And when he was asked if he still felt connected to intimacy or desire, his answer was a quiet no. George's story is not unusual. As we age, the social circles that once surrounded us often shrink. Children grow up, friends move away or pass on. Work, once a source of daily interaction, becomes a memory. And while solitude can be peaceful, isolation is different. It's not chosen, it just happens. But here's the good news: loneliness is not a permanent condition, and even small steps can shift your sense of connection. One of the simplest things you can do: reach out. A phone call, a short message, a walk with a neighbor, joining a local club or group. These aren't grand gestures, but they're powerful ones. Studies show that maintaining meaningful social contact is one of the strongest predictors of emotional well-being in later life. And emotional well-being is the soil in which intimacy grows. Technology has made this easier than ever. You don't have to be a tech expert. A 5-minute video chat with family, or even a shared photo over text, can spark joy and remind you that you're not alone. Even writing letters, yes, the old-fashioned kind, has been shown to improve emotional connection. Sending a note to a friend, a sibling, or even a grandchild opens a window into someone else's world and lets them into yours. It's also helpful to find spaces where you can be heard, whether it's a support group, a weekly class, or simply a regular coffee date with someone you trust. Feeling seen and listened to brings warmth and belonging back into your life. And when that warmth returns, so does your sense of closeness, both emotionally and, yes, physically. Let's also not forget that relationships don't have to be romantic to nurture intimacy. Friendships, laughter, shared experiences, these all reinforce our sense of being valued. And when you feel valued, you're more likely to desire connection and to feel desirable in return. Now, if you're someone who hasn't reached out in a while, you're not alone. Taking the first step can feel vulnerable, but remember, the people who care about you likely miss you too, and just one connection can start to lift the fog. So the next time you feel disconnected, try this: send a message, make the call, invite someone over, or if you're feeling bold, say yes to an invitation you might usually turn down. Because loneliness may be common, but it's not your destiny. Connection is still possible. Joy is still possible. And closeness, even after 65, is still very much within reach. All it takes is one step. Let's talk about something that often goes unsaid, especially after 65. When it comes to sexual health, one simple truth stood out in the research. Seniors who saw sexuality as important were more likely to be satisfied with their sex lives. And honestly, that makes perfect sense. Because what we value, we tend to care for. And what we care for, we nurture, protect, and make space for in our lives. Unfortunately, many older adults are taught, directly or indirectly, that sexuality is no longer relevant, that it fades with age, that it's not important anymore. But the truth is, intimacy doesn't disappear unless we decide it's no longer worth holding on to. And the study shows that when we keep sexual health on our radar, when we recognize it as something worth investing in, it tends to thrive, even with age. Consider this: prioritizing sexual health doesn't mean you're chasing youth. It means you're honoring connection to yourself and to others. It's about recognizing that touch still matters, that affection still matters, that being desired and desiring can continue to bring joy, comfort, and closeness in deeply meaningful ways. Take Linda, for example. She's 71, recently retired, and had almost accepted the idea that intimacy was a thing of the past. She told herself that she was too tired, too out of practice, and that her body had changed too much. But something inside her still missed that closeness. So instead of brushing those feelings aside, she started reading, journaling, and even speaking to a therapist about her changing relationship with intimacy. What happened next wasn't a miracle. It was a quiet rediscovery. She talked to her partner. They laughed about how awkward it felt at first. But over time, they began exploring new ways to connect, emotionally and physically. They focused less on performance and more on presence. And slowly, what was once uncomfortable began to feel natural again. For Linda, naming intimacy as important gave her permission to tend to it without shame and with care. That's the shift we're talking about here. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to return to how things used to be in your 30s or 40s. But when you treat your sexual well-being as something that still deserves attention, the same way you would treat your diet, your exercise, or your emotional health, you open the door to deeper connection. This might mean carving out time to talk honestly with your partner about how you're feeling. It might mean seeing a doctor to address concerns like dryness, low libido, or physical discomfort. Because yes, there are solutions, and you absolutely deserve access to them. It might also mean redefining what intimacy looks like for you today. Maybe it's slower, more intentional, or more emotionally driven. No matter what form it takes, making space for intimacy in your life, in whatever way feels right, is a powerful act of self-respect. It says, this part of me still matters, and here's something else to remember. Intimacy isn't just about sex, it's about how you care for your connection, your vulnerability, your affection, your laughter. Prioritizing sexual health means keeping that flame alive, not just for physical pleasure, but for emotional nourishment. So if you've been putting intimacy on the back burner, or if you've been unsure whether it's still worth tending to, let this be your gentle nudge. If it matters to you, then it matters. And once you give yourself permission to prioritize it again, you might be surprised by how much joy, confidence, and connection comes back into your life. Let's take a moment to talk about something deeply important, and too often overlooked when it comes to sexual health after 65. What women go through during and after menopause. For many women, intimacy can become physically and emotionally complicated as they age. The hormonal shifts that come with menopause don't just affect mood or hot flashes. They also bring real, tangible changes to the body. These include vaginal dryness, thinning of the tissues, discomfort during intercourse, and sometimes even a complete loss of sexual desire. And yet, so few women talk about it. Why? Because for generations, these topics were seen as taboo. Women were taught to simply endure the changes quietly, as though it was just part of getting older. But the truth is, these experiences are common. They are real, and they are absolutely treatable. Take Helen, for example. She's 69. Confident, active, and happily married. But over time, she began to feel disconnected from her body. What once felt natural and joyful with her husband started to feel painful and awkward. At first, she assumed it was just aging, and she didn't want to burden anyone with her concerns. Not even her doctor. It wasn't until a close friend shared her own experience that Helen felt safe enough to speak up. She made an appointment with her gynecologist and for the first time learned about the wide range of options now available, from hormone-free vaginal moisturizers and lubricants to localized estrogen therapies that could restore comfort without affecting the rest of her body. She was also surprised to learn that urologists now play a major role in supporting women's intimate health, especially those trained in pelvic medicine. With just a few small adjustments and open communication with her partner, Helen began to feel like herself again, not younger, not back to normal, but fully present, reconnected, and empowered. Stories like hers are more common than you think, and they're a powerful reminder that discomfort, dryness, or changes in desire don't have to mean the end of intimacy. In fact, they can be the beginning of a new chapter, one marked by better communication, mutual care, and rediscovering closeness on your own terms. If you or your partner are navigating these kinds of changes, know this: you are not alone, and you don't have to suffer in silence. There are professionals, compassionate, experienced, and understanding, who are ready to listen and help. And there are solutions that can restore not just physical comfort, but emotional confidence as well. The most important step: start the conversation. Whether it's with your doctor, your partner, or even with a trusted friend, opening the door to this discussion can change everything. When you stop seeing these changes as limitations and start seeing them as signals that your body is asking for a little more attention and care, you reclaim your power. You honor your health. Intimacy in later life is not about going back to anything. It's about moving forward, gently, intentionally, and with the knowledge that your well-being still matters. And that includes your sexual health. So if you're experiencing dryness, discomfort, or a change in desire, don't brush it off. Speak up. Seek guidance. Because with the right support, this stage of life can be full of warmth, connection, and deep satisfaction, not in spite of the changes, but because you've chosen to care through them. After all the research and reflection, one thing stands clear: intimacy remains a vital thread in the fabric of our lives, no matter our age. When we talk about sexual well-being, it's easy to think only in terms of physical function or youthful energy. But the truth is, intimacy in later life is about so much more than that. It's about emotional connection. It's about vulnerability, closeness, trust, and the deep satisfaction that comes from being truly known and truly valued. The findings from the German study remind us that sexual health, especially after 65, doesn't fade into the background unless we allow it to. In fact, it remains a central part of our overall well-being, tied closely to how we feel about ourselves, how we connect with others, and how we engage with life. Whether you're 65, 75, or 85, that connection doesn't lose its meaning. In many ways, it becomes even more precious. Think about how relationships evolve with time. They grow richer, deeper, more rooted in shared memories, mutual care, and quiet understanding. That same growth can apply to your sense of intimacy. Not just sexual, but emotional and spiritual as well. It's not about meeting a certain standard or frequency. It's about presence, about being there with and for each other in a way that feels authentic and safe. If you're in a relationship, take time to check in with one another. Ask, how are we doing? What's been on your mind lately? Is there something we've been missing that we could bring back? These small conversations often open the door to renewed closeness. If you're currently on your own, don't let that define your sense of connection. Intimacy isn't exclusive to couples. The touch of a friend's hand, a meaningful conversation, a warm hug from a grandchild, these are all moments that feed the heart. And yes, it's never too late to explore new relationships, whether romantic or simply close and supportive. Companionship comes in many beautiful forms. And above all, take care of you. Nourish your health, eat well, stay active, get outside for fresh air. Engage your mind and your soul, whether it's through reading, art, gardening, or journaling. All these things build the foundation for you to feel good in your body, at ease in your emotions, and open to connection. Aging is not a closing door, it's an opening to deeper understanding, softer love, and richer experiences. You don't have to accept fading joy or closeness as inevitable. You have every right to embrace a full, warm, emotionally rich life, and that includes the intimate part of it. So the final message is simple but important. You are still worthy of love. You are still capable of deep intimacy. And you absolutely deserve joy in your heart, in your body, and in every season of life. As we grow older, it's easy to believe that certain parts of life, like intimacy or emotional closeness, are meant to fade. But the truth is, they simply evolve. Research shows that sexual well-being remains deeply connected to our overall health, happiness, and sense of self, even after 65. It's not just about physical intimacy, it's about feeling valued, connected, and emotionally fulfilled. Factors like good health, emotional connection, and a positive view of sexuality all play important roles. But so do things like staying socially connected and acknowledging the importance of touch, affection, and companionship. Loneliness and silence can erode our well-being, but open conversations, even small gestures of care, can rebuild that bridge. For women especially, postmenopausal changes can bring unique challenges, but there is support, treatment, and hope. Prioritizing your needs, being honest about how you feel, and seeking help when needed isn't a sign of weakness. It's a step toward wholeness. At any age, you deserve closeness. You deserve to feel seen, wanted, and loved. So don't shrink away from intimacy, lean into it, define it on your own terms, and let it be a source of joy, connection, and vitality. We'd love to hear from you. What does intimacy mean to you at this stage in life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this video brought you insight or comfort, please like, subscribe, and stay connected. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video from The Wise Senior.